The last thing I want to explore with you is on the Design tab. On the Design tab, we've looked at themes. You can see that there are style sets in here where you can apply different style sets, which would manually, completely update all of your styles. You have the different parts of the themes, like the colors, the fonts, all these things that we've looked at. But over here on the right, you have other items like a watermark, page color, and page borders. Page color will pull from your theme and will apply to the entire background of the page. What's important to note is when you pick one page color, it will apply to the entire document, and unfortunately, section breaks don't allow you to change those. What also is important to note is this doesn't print. The page color does not print. It will not take your whole white page and turn it blue. It is for when you're creating electronic documents and you want the page background to be a different color. So page coloring is great, but it doesn't print and it applies one color to the entire document all the time by default and never gives you an option to change that. The next one is page borders. We've worked with borders before on a paragraph, but page borders go around the margin. When you click page borders, you'll see a very similar dialog box that you've seen before, borders and shading, but we were always working on the borders tab or the shading tab, never on the middle with the page border. The biggest difference with the page border is that there's applying to the whole document. You still have the same kind of borders you would see before, colors, widths, but now there's an art option. And you can get really 90s style with this by adding things like, Christmas trees around your entire document and clicking OK. This can be pretty crazy, but it happens sometimes when you want to use things like, if I scroll through here, little icons for, or like a border that they have pre-built where it's like they're changing it on either side, or maybe you're doing stars. Some people really like to use these. I don't know if they're super professional in my opinion, but some people do add them and apply them. What I think is important to note as well is by default, it's applying to the whole document, but you could apply it to specific sections in the document and make it so that different sections have different borders. The last thing we have is a watermark. A watermark is great for adding something that is faded on the back of each page, like the word confidential or do not copy. Sometimes you want to put this onto files. I tend to put watermarks on things where they aren't final or do not share when I don't want somebody else to be able to share them. So let's say I wanted it to say do not share instead of do not copy or confidential. I could go down to custom watermark here, and then I can put in whatever watermark I want, even a picture. So what if you wanted like your company logo watermarked in the background of each page? You could do that. Then you could go to text watermark here, and we could do something like first with the drop-down menu for text, you have a bunch of different options you can pick, but I can actually click in here and delete this and type whatever I want. So in all caps, I can put do not share. I can also change the font of this if I want to like, let's say, Trebuchet. And if I could click Trebuchet, there we go. The size is going to be automatic. I can change the color to be like the green color of my font here. And I can make it semi-transparent, diagonal, horizontal, lots of things. But when I click apply, you'll see that it will actually apply to every single one of the pages in the document. What if I don't want it on my cover page? This is kind of fascinating. Your watermark is attached to your header and your footer. So if I go up into the header of my page, you'll see that do not share becomes something that I can actually click on, if I can get a hold of it here. Oh, yep, it's an actual object I can click on, move around, and I can delete it. And the reason I can delete it off this first page and it won't remove off any of the other pages is because this is a different first page cover page, which means this cover page can do everything different than all the other pages in this section. So you can actually remove watermarks on first pages or in different sections, depending on what you want to do, but they're attached to the header and the footer, which is kind of fascinating. All right. So we now have a watermark on here, we have a border, page color, numbering, table of contents, all of these things, and we have a full report. So I would go ahead and I would save this. And I would also say that if you wanted to share this out and you didn't want people to be able to edit it, what would you do? Would you send it as a Word document? No, because people can edit that, right? Unless you add protected view. So one of the options if you don't want people to edit it is first to go to File, Save As, and change your file type to a PDF. Sending PDFs makes them uneditable unless somebody can get them back into Word, which is a little bit more complicated and usually doesn't look the same. Another option you have, though, is to go to the Info tab and protect this document. Protecting the document is making it so that you can encrypt it with a password, make it so that people can only read it and not edit it, add digital signatures, and other types of things. So we can go ahead and hit always open read only, or we can encrypt with a password, or we can even restrict the editing to certain things. So let's say restrict editing. When we click restrict editing, you'll see that we actually get the options to limit the formatting to a selection of styles or only allow a certain type of editing. So no changes, can't edit it, only read it. Do we want them to be able to use track changes, add comments, or fill in forms? So you can add different pieces here, but if we don't want them to be able to make any change at all, we can go ahead and start enforcing this protection, and then it will ask us if we want to put a password. What's important is this password is optional, so you don't have to actually put anything. So go ahead and click OK without a password, and you'll see now that if you try and type or do anything, everything is grayed out in your ribbon and you can't do it. What I think is also important to note is, let's say I open this document from somebody else and it's restricted. So I'm going to close my restrict editing. I know I can't make changes. I know I can't do things, but the second I start trying to type, this restrict editing dialog box pops up. And one thing is very important on this restrict editing dialog box. Down here at the bottom, I can stop the protection. So if you don't put a password on this, somebody can come in here, just stop the protection, and start making changes and defeating the purpose of protecting this document. So keep in mind when you're protecting the document, if you're trying to restrict editing inside of Word so that they can't make changes or can only do track changes or comments or fill in forms, when you restrict the editing and start the protection, probably should add a password so that way they actually can't edit it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and that's kind of how you can go ahead and protect documents, create large documents for you to be able to share it